Corporate taxes have been reduced over time. Donald Trump has recently further reduced them to levels that resemble the rates from the Great Depression. Notice how much higher they were during the 1950s. This is important to note because this is the era many Republicans point to as a golden age of America. Of course, they have no idea what tax rates were, they just have a sense that things were better, and for the middle class, they certainly were. Many on the right have pointed out that U.S. corporate tax rates are much higher than those of other advanced countries, arguing that this has made us uncompetitive. First off, these taxes are on profits, not revenue, so it's not like higher tax rates were driving up costs. More importantly, U.S. corporations don't actually pay this rate. Once you account for tax breaks and subsidies, you are left with effective tax rates, which you can see are actually much lower for U.S. corporations. In fact, U.S. corporations have been paying fairly low corporate tax rates for the last few decades, much lower than the OECD average. The right has been complaining about a non-existent problem for decades, and Trump has just further reduced those taxes. Taking a look at the historical data, we see absolutely no correlation between corporate tax cuts and increased GDP or job growth. If anything, they've somewhat slowed. Why? Because arguably higher taxes encouraged businesses to spend back into the economy in order to use those costs as a tax shelter. What has increased, however, are corporate profits. Now, conservatives like to pretend that businesses are stupid. That just because they are making profits, that they are going to invest back into the economy just because. But here's the problem. As more of the wealth becomes concentrated, the lower income brackets continue to lose buying power as their wages fall behind rising costs of living. If people have less buying power, they will have less disposable income that allows them to purchase whatever service or product corporations are providing. In other words, it's a demand-side problem. So rather than spending back into the economy, corporations are more likely to simply buy back their own stocks to inflate their prices, or pay their executives sky-high incomes now that the top marginal tax rates are low. Or perhaps they'll simply purchase smaller companies to increase their market share and lay off the portion of the workforce that becomes redundant after the acquisition. Oh, but wait, don't the new tax cuts coincide with our low unemployment rate? No. The unemployment rate has been dropping steadily since 2010. In fact, that rate has actually slowed since Trump took office. To be fair, we would expect this to slow as the economy nears full employment. Nevertheless, using Trump supporter logic, we could just as easily credit Barack Obama's tax increase on the top earners with the drop in unemployment in 2013 and beyond. So, if you're struggling to get by at $40,000 a year and you think somehow that SJWs, feminists, and quote-unquote welfare moms are the source of your problems, you're wrong. You're just being divided and conquered. Your share of the economic pie has decreased so that the wealthy can keep a larger portion of the wealth being generated by this economy that we all participate in. This is not some unavoidable consequence of modern capitalism, as can be seen by the fact that this problem is most pronounced here in the United States. It is the result of changes in legislation that has cut taxes on corporations and on the wealthy and driven unions into near extinction. Wealth inequality itself isn't the problem, of course, it's the levels we've reached. Your wages are falling behind increased costs of living. Take a look at your paycheck. Do you really think that keeping an additional 10% will move you out of that shitty apartment and into a nice home? What if you were making twice the amount you're currently making? You see, because that is the actual problem. Had wages kept up with rising costs of living and economic growth, your paycheck would be roughly twice the size as it currently is. So, keep blaming feminists and lower income people all you want, they aren't the source of your economic problems.